Welcome to Connecting Diasporic Literature. I am your host, Alice Maria James, and I'm here with the president of Centenary University, Dr. Dale Caldwell. Dr. Caldwell, I would love to share your whole bio with everybody, but we can't do that. But I would love for you to share about Centenary University and your vision as far as the Black Halls of Fame.
Well, thank you very much. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. It is an honor to have these legendary women here with us. We're gonna learn a lot and be inspired today. So first, I guess I'll say, even before I was at Centenary, I founded the Black Authors Hall of Fame and really wanted some dynamic leader, a woman of vision and power. And so Alice James was selected, and she's just exceeded the expectations. And I started the Black Authors, the Black Inventors, the Black Tennis, and the Black Educators Halls of Fame to really permanently record history that has been overlooked. And so that's really the reason at these Halls of Fame. We don't remember award ceremonies, but we remember Halls of Fame. So you are all legends until that. Centenary University is a 157-year-old university here in Hackettstown, New Jersey, the northwest corner of New Jersey. I'm the first African-American president, and actually I'm here in the president's house. And we're really trying to really have intercultural competence as one of our main focus areas, to really bring the world together, to introduce new cultures and perspectives that other people don't know, and to create a unified world around diversity. So that's who we are. We are welcome to have students apply. We have graduate programs. We have certificate programs. So we're just excited to be part of this. And Susan Van Alsten, our director of the library, is one of the most entrepreneurial leaders of the library. And really, it's with her and Alice who put this whole program together. So with that, Alice, I'll turn it back to you.
I'm going to allow our skit to come forth.
Okay. So this is a conversation between Patwa Patsy and Speaky Spokey. I'm Patwa Patsy.
And I'm Speaky Spokey.
Wagwan.
Are you addressing me? Surely you mean, how do you do?
Then it's why you so Speaky Spokey.
There is a great reason. We have to translate for some audience members.
But Patwa is fairy language. If it's good enough for Miss Lou, then it's good enough for everybody.
Well, that's really very true. Dr. Louise Bennett Coverley's seminal pedagogy and scholarship elevated Jamaican culture.
You mean, say, Miss Lou bring we culture to the world with the patois, but I know everybody know it.
Quite so. That is why we're gathered here today, to amplify Caribbean literary culture. We want to welcome a new generation.
Yes, it's nice to see how on a send call all of the young people them to gather around to hear the story and the poem them.
Indeed. This Black History Month is a chance for more of us to understand and acknowledge the close historical ties between the U.S. and the Caribbean. From the abolition of slavery through the Harlem Renaissance to the 21st century. For example, Alexander Hamilton, who was born in Nevis, was a significant figure in the establishment and governance of the United States. Jamaica's Marcus Garvey advanced the civil rights movement during Jim Crow. Barbadian Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm ran for the presidency of the U.S. And Jamaica's Louise Bennett Coverley took the baton, spreading Jamaican language and culture in the United States and further afield.
Oh, Lord. Miss Speaky Spokey, Well, I don't have anything else to say. You blow the words right out of my head. You take over and make the other announcements, me dear, because they can understand you better.
Okay. Well, coming up next, we're going to have Dr. Opal Palmer Adisa, who will be giving us a presentation on nation language, Jamaica's nation language. Take it away, Professor.
Thank you. Wagwan. Thanks to President Obama, everyone who did not know what that means now know. Wagwan is how we say it in Jamaica. How are you? What's up? We're glad to hear your story. And so I'm speaking about nation language, but I'm actually doing a precursor. So the title of my piece is called A Serious Scholar on Jamaican Nation Language, Louise Bennett, aka Miss Lou. And I feel it's important to do that because whereas many people know about Louise Bennett, many people do not know about her scholarship. So I beg your indulgence for me to share this information with you. And I want to start with a quote that was done by Robert Verity in 1961 in referring to Louise Bennett's work. And Verity says, her work has constituted an invaluable contribution to the discovery and the development of an indigenous culture, and her verses are valid social documents reflecting the way we think and feel and live. And as you all know, language is the cosmology of a people. It speaks to the way we feel, the way we think, the way we react, and which is why during enslavement, the African language was denied, but we retained it. And so what we call patois, which is a term that I think should be banished, but nation language is really a combination, like most languages are a combination of Twi, T-W-I, from Ghana, because that was the dominant group that came to Jamaica, English, and it has some Spanish words and some Taíno words, because the Taínos were here and gave us things like guava, guayaba, and things like that. So, but nation language, like any language, is the mixture of all of those that comes to represent our very ethos. But a little bit on Miss Lou. Louise Bennett has long been a household name, not only in Jamaica, but throughout the Caribbean, where her poetry is taught as well as in England and other North American regions. However, many people know very little about Miss Lou, or rather they know very little about Louise Bennett, who is a scholar. It's way past time that we set the record straight and understand that Louise Bennett's entire career, whether it is her pivotal role in pantomime as an actress, writer, and director, or her role as a folklorist collecting stories, recording dances, documenting Jamaican proverbs, riddles, and other sayings throughout Jamaica as a cultural worker, her formidable role as the host as well as the content provider for the only Jamaican TV show for children on Jamaican culture, Ring Ding, that has ever been produced. Louise Bennett dedicated her entire life as a cultural activist and a cultural commentator to the people and the culture of Jamaica. And I want to underscore that this was a life of lifelong contribution and a conscious contribution on Louise Bennett's part. It is important that people understand and know that Louise Bennett was a scholar. It was her scholarship that informed her work. Neglected by the academy and the educators that informed her work. It was not until 1963 when the literary critic and professor at the University of the West Indies, Mona Mervyn Morris, wrote an insightful piece examining the work of Louise Bennett entitled Reading Miss Lou Seriously. This is really the first important essay and scholarship about Louise Bennett's poetry. Yet despite this, Louise Bennett's work was largely ignored by the Academy, and her poetry was relegated as dialect poetry, a term that trivialized her craft and content. And even though Miss Lou's work is celebrated widely now in Jamaica and is often featured in the festival competitions, her work is still limited to the dialect category. And oftentimes the way the children are taught to say her poem, it is as if it can only be loud and crass and one-dimensional. This has to change because her work can be and should be read on multiple levels. Allow me to pause here and give you some background about Louise Bennett's education and then go into the use of nation language and what I believe was her mission. Louise Bennett attended Excelsior High School, a very important high school during that era and still is, and she graduated in 1942. This was before independence, before decolonization. It was there that Louise first recognized and was recognized for using dialect poetry. And in fact, Eric Coverley, whom she married 12 years later, who became her husband, was an entertainer and a promoter of Jamaican theatre, saw Miss Lou perform, saw Louise Bennett perform, and asked her mother to have her perform at his Christmas show that he curated, and that was her first paying gig. After graduating from Excelsior in 1943, Miss Lou enrolled at Friends College in Highgate, St. Mary, where she studied folklore. And this is an important marker that I want people to understand, that Miss Lou didn't just go about collecting folklore. She understood that the culture, the saying, the dance, the proverbs of Jamaicans were important, and she wanted the academic background so that she could collect and study these in a manner that was in keeping with the discipline and the scholarship. So she attended Friends College in Highgate, St. Mary, and studied folklore before she began to formally collecting folklore. That was the same year her first poem was published in the Sunday Gleaner. Fast forward 2 years later, in 1945, after being awarded a scholarship from the British Council, Louise Bennett was the first Black student and the first Jamaican to study at the famous London Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, and was rather prestigious then, and is still considered an important institution that trains the best actors and actresses in the performing arts. And Louise Bennett studied there and excelled, and while there, did performances throughout London. Not only did she do performances throughout London, she also did a radio show on BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. Miss Lou and Jamaican Nation language are still being relegated to a certain class, which is why I no longer use the term patois, because patois, as defined, is a dialect of a particular region, especially one with low status. And unfortunately, some people still regard the Jamaican Nation language as a low status language or a dialect. And oftentimes it's considered to be a jargon of informal speech used by a particular social group. And there are still those speaky-spokey or stushy Jamaicans who refuse to speak the Jamaican language because they think it belongs to the working class or the rural people, and they don't want to be associated with it because, after all, they are educated and know how to speak the Queen's English. Miss Lou was very well versed in speaking the Queen's English. Not only did she speak it, she understood it. However, she had a mission. And Miss Lou, and here's what we also need to know. All of Miss Lou's poems are written in the quatrain, which is a European form of poetry with a particular iambic metered rhyme, right? So she mastered a very important form of poetry that she revolutionized by using the Jamaican Nation language. And in fact, it's a similar thing that her predecessor, Claude McKay, the Jamaican poet who was consumed under the Harlem Renaissance, has done with the sonnet, and in particularly the sonnet, If We Must Die, that Winston Churchill used to motivate the soldiers during World War II, but that was not what Claude McKay intended. Miss Lou, or Louise Bennett, used the quatrain form because she wanted to say that whatever form of poetry is used, it is appropriate through the Jamaican nation language. And what the Jamaican nation language does is to regionalize it and to expose and to highlight our feelings, our engagement with world and with life. So that was Miss Lou's mission, and she never veered from that mission in all of her years. She went on to not only write, but to always perform in the Jamaican nation language. And so Miss Lou was also the first person to nationalize pantomime, because before Miss Lou did pantomime, then the pantomime was information and the content was European. Miss Lou nationalized pantomime and also introduced the use of Jamaican language in it. I'm looking at time, and I think I'm okay for time, and I just want to do, I want to point out, use two of Miss Lou's poems to illustrate her use of nation language and why that is important. So there are two poems from this collection that was edited by Mervyn Morris, Selected Poems, Louise Bennett, that came out in 1982. And the two poems I want to speak to very briefly are The Scholar and The Jamaican Woman. And these poems are very popular and have been done a lot by school children and others. But I believe firmly that the point is often missed in both of these poems. The first poem shows us a mother who's coming to the school because her little boy is starting school for the first time, and she wants the teacher to know about the child. Now, many times when people perform this poem, they perform it as if the mother is ignorant and doesn't know what, is just there to kind of make sure that the teacher doesn't rough up her child. This is a very important poem. One is because it's entitled The Scholar, and this is a little boy going to school for the first time, so it could very well be the student. So that's the first signal Miss Lou gives us. And then the second signal that is embedded in the poem is that the mother is speaking to the teacher and she understands pedagogy, because what she's telling the teacher is that this is my child, and the more you know about him, the more effective you can be in teaching him. And so let me just read very quickly the first two stanzas of the poem. Good morning, teacher. How you do? My name is Sarah Poole. This is for my little boy, Michael, and me just bring him a school. So, the poem begins in a matter-of-fact way. The mother has brought her child to school. But then she goes on to describe the school. And this is where I think Miss Lou is always so on point and is always teaching us. Because she says in the fifth stanza, "Not treat him rough, ya teacher. Him is a sickly child. As you touch him hard, him make nice. Some people say him wild." Now, Jamaica's education system is all about roughing up children. At that time, they would beat children. And so in this poem, Miss Lou, in a sense, is interrogating corporal punishment is in school. And the parent is such an important conduit for that, because she's saying, don't rough up my child. He will learn without being rough up. So Miss Lou is talking about this child who is a scholar or potential scholar and is providing a pedagogical approach to how to teach the child. And the poem ends, "Now that you know him little ways and not fearing no fear, that anything will do him so, and left him in your care." So, she's saying to the teacher, I have given you all you need to know about how to teach him, and I'm no longer afraid. I know you will take care of him and that you will teach him what he needs to know so he becomes a scholar. Again, this is a very important poem that oftentimes is not done in the way that I think is important for it to be done. The next poem, which is one of my favorite poems, is called Jamaican Woman, not woman, O-M-A-N, because oftentimes we put H's where they're not and we take off words. And so Miss Lou starts this poem as Jamaican woman kunuso. Is how them Gina so. Look how long them liberated and the man them never know. Now, there are two important things about this poem that one needs to understand. The word jinal and kunu. So Jamaica woman kunu so. Kunu is that word that means it's cunning, it's astute, it's observant, it's all of those things, but she's using the Jamaican word kunu to indicate that the Jamaican woman is smart and ahead of her time. And then she uses jinal. Now, jinal is a very interesting word in Jamaica. We often talk about Anansi as a jinal because he somehow gets his way by jipping people. But jinal also in this context is, again, like kunu, is wise. In other words, you have to, what Miss Lou is saying, which is part of the Anansi persona, is that you have to be subterfuge in order to get ahead. And so the Jamaican woman has had to be subterfuge. She has had to pretend to be something else so that she can be the liberated woman that she is. And the poem goes on to say, and I love the second stanza, look how long Jamaican woman, mother, sister, wife, sweetheart, outer road and inner yard depend and dominate her part. Again, so she's included all of the women, right? From maroon nanny take her body bounce bullet back on man to when nowadays gal picnic turn spelling bee champion, right? So again, it's a historical poem. Maroon Nanny refers to our national heroine, the only female national heroine we had, Granny Nanny, who was a very successful and a very shrewd fighter for the Maroons. And then she brings it up today to the now spelling bee champion. And then the poem ends, but the cunny Jamaican woman ban her belly, bite her tongue, fetch water, put pot on fire, and just dig her tongue aground. For woman lock their dungle heap, some rooted more than some. But as long as fold a scratch dungle heap, woman luck must come. Little by little man start praise her. Day by day the praiser go. For him praise her, oh him praise her. So it's sweeter, for she wonder if him know. So the poem comes full circle and really demonstrates that this is the strategy that the Jamaican woman had to employ in order to get ahead. So the Jamaican nation language is a plum of all of our folklores and our idioms that encapsulate who we are and how we go about progressing in life. And Miss Lou used it not only just to celebrate us and to document our legacy and our culture, but also to show that in our Jamaican nation language is the embodiment of our ethos. And so I now turn it over.
Thank you. Thank you, Opa. And I just want to pick up on that linguistic aspect. Miss Lou is so amazing. She, when we, as you pointed out, she writes on multiple levels, and I don't think there's any end to studying the various levels that Miss Lou is portraying. And I wanted to read a few verses of The Candy Seller, in which Miss Lou exhibits the Jamaican facility with language to castigate in the same breath as it's complimenting. And The Candy Seller, we hear her optimistic sales pitch. It's very charming. And then when she gets disappointed, then we hear the other side, where we feel her deeply resentful response. So despite all of this hilarity, we have to empathize with the woman because her daily workplace stress is encompassing something we can all appreciate and empathize with. Stress followed by hope, followed by despair, heavy stress. So let me read a few verses of Candy Seller for you. Candy lady, Candy mom, business bad nowadays. Lady with the pretty little boy, buy candy. Go on your ways. You're right to draw the picnic hand, cup on him nose hole. Him yard them a tear out like him want hypnotize me candy bowl. Nice young man. Come here. What you want? Pin the cake, Wangla? If you not buy nothing where you stop for, beg you move yourself, yassa. Me no have button that you way. Give the lady pass fi come. Why you not join the Air Force? Them have plenty use fi bomb. After a whole day of going and coming and maybe selling a little bit, our lady has had it. Me done lift up now, yeah, Dinah, she says to her other friend on the corner. Lock her how them lock up store and everybody that go home. Me not go sell much more. Me a go cry out as me go along. Me might a get a break. Bye. Till later on. Me gone. And that's my take on the Candy Seller.
Opal's turn. We're still having a little bit of technical difficulty, but we're
No,
going
but
to
it's,
keep
you
it
know,
moving.
these things always have some technical difficulties, and we just kind of roll with the punch. So the next part of my talk is about Miss Lou abroad in England, New York, and Canada, but continuing her mission of the Jamaican nation language. And I want to, again, always, you know, we have to contextualize this. Now we're in 2024, and certain things we take for granted. Miss Lou was operating in a time before independence, in fact, 1942. So from 1962, so 20 years before independence. Here is this woman, educated, from working class, and very much aware of the social structure of Jamaica, but seeing, almost prophetic, seeing the value in who we are. And I want to underscore that from the very beginning, it's very clear that Miss Lou saw the value in who we are. And of course, you know, she was raised after her father died. She was raised primarily by her mother and her grandmother, both of whom lived with her until they died, right? Even after she was married. And her grandmother was particularly influential in taking her to the market and in guiding her to look at and see the Jamaican people, and to not feel that she was above them or below them, or that they were above or below anyone else. So let's look at Miss Lou now. So Miss Lou goes to England on a scholarship to study at RADA. And in England, she gets a show on the BBC. And when I interviewed her, I had the pleasure of interviewing Miss Lou in 1987 and 1988. When I was entered the doctoral program, I initially thought that I was going to do a biography of her. And when I interviewed her, she talked about how that BBC show came about, you know, and how she created something else of that show. So that show was for people in England, and the Jamaican people who, she says at the time, were not going to take the kind of racist discrimination stuff that was going on. And it was a way for them to keep in touch with people at home and to send greetings to Jamaicans at home. That was the genesis of the show. But it was also there that Miss Lou, I think, really got to understand her relationship with people and the rapport that she had and was able to create, and therefore wanted to do more about Jamaica. And that's where she really started to, or continued and pursue doing more poems for to share with Jamaicans in England as well as Jamaicans abroad. And so she came home And again, one of the things that many people did not understand or do not know about Miss Lou is that Miss Lou really was an academic in so many ways. And that one of the things that when she came home was that she worked with the welfare group, and she studied Jamaican culture. That was part of her job. She went around and looked at collecting folklores all over Jamaica. So Miss Lou toured the 14 parishes of Jamaica, and she spoke to the people. And Easton Lee, whom she trained and who took over when she left that job, one of the things he said to me in his interview is that Miss Lou always told him, you have to find out what the people need, because if you don't know what they need, they're not going to share anything with you. And that was our folklore practice, because those of us who have done folklore, we need to understand that it's a two-way street. And if you want valid information from the people, then you have to know what it is they need and what it is they want. And so Easton Lee would say that, Miss Lou would always bring different things for different people in the rural areas where she visited, because she knew they needed things and she could provide that, and then they would be so much more forthcoming. In addition to that, Miss Lou taught at the University of the West Indies when it just started, and she taught folklore, and she did that for many, many years. So that's also an important part of her training that a lot of people don't understand, that in part of what I'm emphasizing as her scholarship that needs to be underscored. And here are some other information that's important. So we know of Harry Belafonte, who died recently, right? And we know of his famous hit song, Deo Light. And one of the things that most people, or many people, don't know, that Miss Lou was the coach for Harry Belafonte. She introduced him to Hill and Gully Rider, and certainly when I spoke to her, she talked about how both of them, she practiced with him that song. Another thing that is important for us to understand is that Miss Lou, Cassidy, the first book on Jamaican nation language, which is what Cassidy did, that he came to Miss Lou, and Miss Lou also, again, provided him with a great deal of guidance and information about Jamaican nation language and what some of those terms meant. So here again, we're seeing her connection. Miss Lou then went to New York after she left Jamaica in the 50s, and she was working in theater. She had the pleasure of meeting Maya Angelou and working with Maya Angelou. She also had the pleasure of meeting Langston Hughes and working with Langston Hughes. And interestingly enough, it was in New York in 1954 that she and Eric Coverley met up again. And of course, they got married there. So even in New York, Miss Lou had a profound influence in the theater she was doing and in sharing and disseminating Jamaican culture. And this was in the 50s. This was after Marcus Garvey, but Marcus Garvey and his legacy was very much still a part of that foundation. Claude McKay, who didn't do dialect poems when he was in Harlem, but his first collection, Ballads of a Policeman, the first collection he did was written in Jamaican nation language. And Miss Lou knew that, was aware of this kind of legacy, and expanded on this legacy. She went back and forth to London for various performances throughout her lifetime, and other places in the world. And of course, then she ended up in Canada, where, because of her husband's illness, and from there, although she had performed in Canada several times before, but in Canada, she really established a foundation and did a lot of work and continued to celebrate and showcase the Jamaican culture while she was there. So this is really the legacy of Louise Bennett. And one of the things I found out in 2019, when I was celebrating her centennial, was that Miss Lou is widely taught throughout the Caribbean and many other Caribbean islands, particularly the Anglophone Caribbean islands. Her poetry is taught to the children there. And so the children there know her poetry and love her poetry. And that is why, for me, this book, 100 Voices for Miss Lou, is so important. It is a collection of tributes, poetry, interviews, and essay. And for me, it's important. I'm a Louise Bennett scholar, and it's important that people understand the full breadth of her work, understand the scholarship of her work. And so the last section of this book, which is divided into 5 sections, are essays written by esteemed scholars such as Carolyn Cooper and others, writing on Miss Lou's work and the impact that it has had not only on Jamaican society, but on the rest of the world. Miss Lou is also credited for dub poetry. And I dare say if Bob Marley was here, we're celebrating this movie, if Bob Marley was here, he would probably say that if it wasn't for Miss Lou, the songs he sung in the Jamaican nation language that he did, he would not have. And so when we talk about national heroine, yes, Bob Marley is famous and known throughout the globe, but we have to understand that he stands on the shoulder of Louise Bennett, who gave us all permission to use and celebrate the Jamaican nation language. And as Muta Baruko, one of our famous dub poets, is so known for saying, is that Miss Lou was the first dub poet. Without Miss Lou, there would not be dub poetry, because Miss Lou gave the language its feet, and others took it and walked with it. And so dub poetry, which is also an important aspect of Jamaica's development and celebration, is a result of Miss Lou. So we need to understand all of the cultural avenues and streets that she paved for all of us who are here now celebrating and feeling proud to be Jamaican, and feeling particularly proud for chat, we chat. For talk, we talk. For write in a Fui language that express how we're feeling, with love and with big-heartedness. And I want to end this presentation by reading an excerpt from the interview I did with Miss Lou in 1987. And I say to Miss Lou, because this is also a perception or a element of Miss Lou that we see, I say, is the personal Miss Lou as jolly as the public Miss Lou? Where does the personal and the public merge? And this is Miss Lou's verbatim. I want somebody, man. That's what she said. I want somebody. So what she's saying is her public persona of jolliness and her private persona are the same. I could never have weathered all of the storms of my life if I didn't have joy and tek kin teeth kiba heartburn. So tek kin teeth kiba heartburn is a very common Jamaica saying. And what it means is that even though you're smiling, there is hurt. The smile is masking or soothing or helping to move away the pain. So remember that phrase, tek teeth kiba heartburn. I believe that we have the strength to overcome difficulties. Again, this is Miss Lou I'm quoting from. And a lot of it lies in our ability to laugh at certain things, to just bust out a laugh and blow off steam, right? And Miss Lou mastered that as a strategy to survive, as a strategy to promote her agenda of legitimizing, and I use that word very carefully, legitimizing the Jamaican language, so that now I know of 2 universities where students took the Jamaican nation language as a second language. And some of us here in Jamaica are still belly aching and saying we should not teach that kind of language in the schools. And yet many of our children, it's the only language they speak It's their mother's tongue. And in order for them to speak and become proficient in English, it has to be taught as a second language. So, Miss Lou, me thank you for letting me know that me could chat. And me thank you for sharing our culture with the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was a really good view of much of the movement of Miss Lou's life and much of the influence that she wielded in so many different places, and the pride with which we continue to read and study and share and speak and expand in our own use of the nation language. We are truly grateful to her. Thanks. I'm going to hand it over now to Faith, who will talk with us about a bill that Miss Lou mentioned in her poetry.
Thank you. Piggybacking on what Professor Adisa says, Miss Lou is relevant at home and she's relevant abroad. Everything she tackles in Jamaica can fit somewhere else. You just have to change the language just a little bit. And I'm going to be talking about how she tackles domestic abuse. But first, let me say this. So one of her important inventions in her literature was the Auntie Roche character. Auntie Roche was a courageous, wise woman archetype who carried the key message. She had a strong moral compass. Miss Lou could have done all that talking herself, but she knows her audience. And so she put Auntie Roche in front to carry the message so people can hear it. In 1971, Miss Lou wrote Wife Beating Bill. Now here's how that happened. A radio show called Man in the Street played an April Fool's prank on listeners by asking them about a fictitious wife-beating assessment bill. I bet that wasn't funny to Miss Lou. So she has Auntie Roche deliver the key message. Domestic abusers deserve serious jail time. Of course, she was way ahead of her time because the law didn't pass until some 26 years later. So she did carry that fight. Now, before I read, here are some phrases that you should listen for. You're going to hear the word budum. That's the name of one of the characters. Budum is also what it sounds like when you get a blow. And it's exaggerated. Budum. You're going to hear the people, them. Every time we need to do a plural, because we have conjugation in our language, you're going to hear them. If it's the car, them. The people, them. The house, them. The ladies, them. Okay? Add an A to a helping verb. Him was a run. He was running. Him was a run. Him was a drink. Here's another plural, uno. Every time you want to say a second person plural, you say uno. Duppy. Who is a duppy? A duppy is a ghost. Friendly or unfriendly. Here's a proverb using the word duppy. Duppy know who fi frighten. Meaning a person doesn't bring a fight if he or she is guaranteed to lose that fight. To nyam is to eat. To nyam is to eat. Here is another proverb. Fowl run from hawk, but nyam cockroach. Meaning the chicken easily preys on the grub, the cockroach on the ground. But don't worry, the hawk is standing by. The hawk is a threat to the chicken. Okay, if you hear somebody say, "Poopa take the case," and hold up them hand and them head, It means, Jesus, take the wheel. To bawl is to cry. To bawl out is to shout out, maybe in pain. And if you have a tizzy, it means you're in a tizzy, a very bad tizzy, and everybody knows what that is. Almost a nervous breakdown. Okay, now let's read for you wife beating bill. Listen up. You hear the man in the street yesterday morning ask the people what them think about the wife beating assessment bill? I laugh so till water come up the eye when man in the street catch everybody, including my auntie Roche. When man in the street ask the people them if them think that the wife beating assessment bill should impose a prison sentence of no less than 12 months on the wife beating man them, all the woman them holler, yes, for man too like to beat up woman and wife beating is too prevalent. When man in the street ask the people them if them don't think that a prison sentence is a bit harsh for the wife beater, all the woman them say, no, send them go to jail. Although some people said 12 months was a little bit too much. But one woman holler, 12 months not enough. Prison the wife beating man them for longer than that. Auntie Roche holler, prison them, yes. Lock up the advantage, take of them. Locks up. So when man in the street ask if them think that the proposed wife beating bill will cut down on the offense of wife beating, one man say that he don't approve of that bill at all, at all. It is barbaric, and there is no necessity to pass such a law. People should find other means of dealing with such matter. Auntie Roche holla, find other means? No. If them jail one or two a uno, plenty will stop woman maltreatment. For the most of the wife beating man is coward, and them only tackle who them think weaker than them. Oh, dopey know who fi frighten. Fowl run from hawk, but nyam cockroach. So jail the man them, for jail is stronger than them. But the part where sweet me can't done is when the man in the street asks them if them think any spouse should inflict more than 3 strokes upon them wife. One woman said that she would have settled for 3 strokes. My auntie Roach get herself in a one temper and holler, Papa take the case. Second for 3 strokes, it make a boy like Budum can take him wife Fuffy, so make beating stick all day long. Because poor Fuffy did start for settle for 3 strokes, then 3 times 3 strokes, then 100 times 3 strokes. So till now Fuffy can't count the strokes them where Buduma leg up on her. Sick of it 3 strokes indeed. No man shouldn't be able to lick him wife at all without authority. Lick him in a prison, jail him, lock him up, put him where. That wife beating assessment bill going to be the popularist law. Auntie Roach, she work herself up into one physic that me have to shake her and ball out and tell her, said, govern your temper and calm yourself. Them not got no wife beating assessment bill. It's prank them a play. A bay like a tomfool day. So you see here that Miss Lou decided to tackle this silent epidemic, and it's a global epidemic. almost every country has statistics to show that domestic abuse is going on, and we need to make an effort to tackle it. Thank you.
Thank you, Faith. Great. All right, and with another aspect of Miss Lou's work, we are going to welcome Andrene Bonner with a love letter.
Thank you. That was fabulous, Faith. Oh my goodness. I heard it. I heard it. I heard it. And I know a lot of people heard what you had to say. Thank you so much. I'm going to do a different take on the culture in love letter. So you have the man we are beat, but on the other hand, you have the lover. In Louise Bennett Coverley's love letter, the poet vehemently refutes the pejorative notion that love and tenderness are absent in Black communities, particularly among the less educated. I want you to listen closely to the speaker in the poem, an adult language learner, who says in nation language, "We're learning not too grand. So what me can spell, me withdraw." Translated, it means, I do not have much education, but what I cannot spell in this letter, I will draw. I will paint you a picture of how I feel about you. You see, this bold assertion, highlighting the speaker's limited literacy, underscores the importance of finding alternative means to express profound emotions. Through humor and cultural familiarities, Miss Lou skillfully utilizes symbolisms and cultural attributes to infuse the poem with a light-hearted tone, a signature of hers, challenging stereotypes and affirming the passion and tender expressions that run deep in the psyche of Black communities. Love letter. Me darling love, me little dove, me dumpling, me gizzada, me sweetie Sue, I goes for you like how flies goes for sugar. As I puts me pen to paper and me pen nib start to fly, me remembrance remember the first day you catch me eye. You did just come off a tram car. A bus was to your right. A car sweeps past your left ears and you turn up stiff with fright. Your jaw drop, your mouth open, just like when jackass start yawn. Me heart go boogo boogo boogo. I mean, know what make me born. Do. Just call little letter. No laugh out of me, Me learning not too grand. So what me can spell, me withdraw. The thing in the corner with the freckles is me heart. And the plate with the yam and saltfish mean that we can never part. You see how me draw the two face them that look upon one another? Well, one is you and one is me. Take which one you rather. It's not a cockroach foot this. It's a finger with a ring. And it mean me want to marry you. This line is a piece of string. Take it. Put it round the wedding finger. Are your wedding hand? Careful, forget the right size. And then give to this man. The man is me. Now, sweet rice, keep swell till I see you next. Accept me young heart while I close with love and Banza X.
Superb. I love that poem, and you brought it to life.
That's beautiful.
Mm.
All right. So we are moving on to Opal again. Opal, you're going to share with us a little bit
Well,
more
actually, I don't know what's happened to Vangella, but maybe this is an opportune moment for all of us to share. This was going to be a conversation about the impact of Miss Lou on us and the impact we feel has that on the world. And Vangella and I had, talked about raising a conversation. So I'd love to have a conversation with the three of you. Let me just say to the audience, let me just say to each of you how incredible your specific selection was and how much it illuminates and expand what Miss Lou has to say. That wife piece is a piece that I used many years ago. In fact, as a precursor to the passing of the domestic violence bill, which was passed in 2023, really. So you see how Miss Lou was prophetic in bringing that forward. And then Andrene, as you so aptly say, that we don't think working class or people who are marginally educated, speak of love and tenderness. But love letters is one of the most eloquent, one of the sweetest rendition I know of poem. So it's just wonderful what you've all done in sharing the breadth of Louise Bennett's work with this audience who might not be familiar with it. And same with the candy sellers. We still have candy sellers, not in the same way, but again, which is why it's important for us to look at Miss Lou as a social commentator. That's part of what she was doing. If you want to understand the history and the culture of Jamaica during that time, Miss Lou's poems document that very clearly. I'm hearing an echo. I'm not sure where that is coming from, but I leave it open for one of you to raise a question or a comment, and we can just kind of pipe in and share for the rest of the time about Miss Lou. And then I think there's going to be an opportunity for the audience to raise questions.
I think we have a very little amount of time left, and we can very quickly ask you, Opal, to just expand a little bit on what you think Miss Lou means to all of us. Because, for instance, I know that as a youngster, I had Miss Lou's voice in my head on the radio. But as I grew older and went into theater, I got a chance to perform with her. And then I studied her work at school and at university. And so this is us from that era. I'm very interested in what she means in today's Jamaica, because I see she's still very popular. And then we're going to need to open it up to the audience for questions.
Sure, absolutely. So I'm doing a little documentary film with another colleague, Tommy Ricketts, on Ringding. And so we brought in some students to kind of reenact Ringding, which was it was the first show for Jamaican children celebrating themselves and their culture. And one of the little girls, and I hadn't asked her, said, "Miss, I want to do this poem." And she was doing the poem Uriah Preach, right, which is another popular poem that is done in the festival. One of the things that students love about Miss Lou's poem is that she gives voice still today to some of their thinking. She gives voice to the characters they see in their community, and they are able then to share in these characters' pronouncements. So that's a really important thing, that our work is still relevant today, because children, not just from the rural area, sees these characters, because these are iconic characters in the Jamaican landscape: the preacher, the candy seller, the person on the road, and she gives them voice in a society that still does not value these people. Now, when I was going to school, we were not allowed to speak the Jamaican nation language at Woolmer's. You could get a detention, and many schools did not allow for that to happen. It tells you how much things have changed since independence, and particularly in the last 30 years, so that now Jamaican nation language is spoken on the radio, on television. Everybody speaks it, even though some people pretend that they don't. So
I think we definitely need to, sorry to cut you there, Opal, but I would like to ask whether anyone in our audience would like to type us a question before we go. I have my eye on the chat. And while we're waiting for that, if there are any last words from Faith and Andrene.
Well, I agree. I'm using it. I have permission to use it. When I was growing up, that's how I interacted with my grandmother and my mother. And I was even telling someone the other day that I make up affirmations for myself. And when my affirmations are not believable or not working, I go to the Jamaica's nation language. I was about to say patois, but really I do. So, an affirmation might be, "Oh, I am fabulous. I'm wonderful. I respect my." No, that's not believable. Lift up yourself, man. You're good. You're fabulous. You can do this every day. When I do that, I'm imitating my mother's voice and my grandmother's voice. And those were the voices I heard as a baby. So it makes sense that that's where I start. It's the first language I heard, maybe after the nurse yanking me out of my mother's womb. So it's critical, it's important. And that's what I want to contribute to the conversation.
It's in the Q&A from Dr. Fraser.
Can you read it, please?
Thank you, Opal, for the history of Louise Bennett, and for Andrene for so vividly reading her work. You never want to call my name. Can Andrene comment on what the poem she read means to her? Well, all I can say is that I am a lover and also an educator who has taught English as a second language to children of Caribbean heritage. And so I do understand using the visual medium to help students to access literacy through drawings. So Miss Lou was, again, like we've been sharing, that she was way ahead of her time. And the questions are coming into the chat right now from the audience.
Yes. Can you, if you see it, can you go ahead and read it, please?
Yes. There's a Shanice Fish. I am opening a Caribbean food market in Newark. The mission is to introduce the world to our rich Caribbean culture through food. There will be animated characters telling stories about our culture. I would love to collaborate with you all on my store mission. Lord, we get work. As Malachi Smith is asking, Malachi is one of our premier dub poets, and Malachi is asking, saying, awesome presentation. Did the African American struggles inform or impacted Miss Lou work? Take that away, Dr. Palma Disa.
Malachi, thanks for that. Yes, I am sure it did. Miss Lou was impacted by the struggle of Caribbean people in England, and certainly she was impacted by the struggle of African Americans and Caribbean people in America, and it informed her work tremendously. And in the interview I did with her, she talked about her relationship with Maya Angelou, and the way in which Maya Angelou talked about her own struggles in the South and elsewhere, and her work. One of the things she loved about Langston Hughes that she felt was in an affinity with hers was that he was writing about the everyday African American, and she was writing about the everyday Jamaican. So definitely it was informed by the African American struggle, because she saw the parallels that existed in terms of Jamaican, the ordinary Jamaican struggling out of a colonial legacy.
Great, great. Thank you. River Dean says, thank you for this great event. I'm working on a PhD based on Miss Lou's identification of a healing practice. I would love to discuss this with you. I don't know who you would like to discuss it with, all of us, or who wants to take that away?
Well, I'm thinking we might want to offer a little bit more than we can cover today.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that has to be something he can, if he,
Take it offline.
there is, at the end of this, there is a survey for this event. And if you fill out the survey, it asks if you are interested in learning more, and you leave us your name and your email address. We will be more than willing to share a little bit more with you.
Okay, Laurel Morrison is saying, thanks to everyone for the great expressions. Must remind everyone that in my early school days, the parent would tell the teacher, you are in charge. Do what you will. Love this program, Laurel. Thank you, Laurel, for the reminder. And there is an anonymous attendee who says, Alice, can you reconnect Dr. Vangella Buchanan connection, please?
Unfortunately, I could not get her on. We have a few minutes. I don't know if Faith did it earlier, but we had wanted to share. Did we share the words, Faith, that we wanted to
Not
teach
yet.
the audience before? So if you
Excellent.
can just give 3 words, because I don't want to keep us long. So if you can give them 3 words that they might be able to take with them, and then we'll start the wrapping up of the program.
Okay, well, I had a scenario planned, a party, a going out, but I'll scrap that. You already know what a guan or wagwan, how are you? You already know what it's you, plural is uno. Let me see what else I can find on my list. If your friends, whole dog, let me tell you about this one. Let's say you're going to pick up your friend to go to a party, and the friend's coming in, and you have your pit bull running around outside. The friend needs to come to the gate and say, whole dog, come in. And that way you take your pit bull and put him or her inside and let your friend in. Here's something else. I'm going to show you how to use a proverb. Foul foot scratch better than cow foot. Foul foot scratch better than cow foot. When would you use that? Let's say you went to a Jamaican restaurant and you got a huge, massive, generous serving of rice and peas and chicken. And somebody gave you a teaspoon to eat the big lumps of luscious curry chicken. And the chicken is falling all over you, falling on the floor. What would your friend say to you? Youth man, fowl's foot scratch better than cow foot. You need a fork. I don't know if you got the context, but some tools are perfect for the task, and some things don't make good tools at all. Foul foot scratch better than cow foot. Aye,
Okay.
aye,
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. So, Vanjie got in?
Yeah.
I use my phone.
Please allow Vanjie to introduce and give you
Thank
the
you.
bio of all of you.
Oh,
Please,
dear.
please allow Vanjie to do that, please.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Oh, wow. When it comes to technical issues, right? We just never know.
You
So
never know.
I'm happy that I did finally have a chance to get on. I'm sorry I pretty much missed, most of this. I was so looking forward to it. Yes, I'm Dr. Vangella Buchanan. I am also an author. I am owner of the Writery Inc., a bookstore and publishing company in Connecticut, in Bloomfield, Connecticut. I am also, a Miss Lou fan. I actually had a chance to meet her in Toronto one year, not too long before she passed. And that was before selfies and all of that. So I never took a photo, and I regretted that every moment. My sister and I had a chance to meet her. So as I said, I'm also an author. I use a pseudonym. It's Vanjie Hazel. And I have perhaps over 20 books out there floating somewhere. And so I'd like to introduce the other authors who are here tonight. Andrene Bonner, she is an educator, a playwright, and winning author of a literacy fiction series, 5 nonfiction books about student resilience, full-length cultural dramas on African American and Caribbean history, and of course her poetry has been published in several anthologies. Her latest book of poetry, or the first book of poetry, I should say, is Woman in the Wind. And she, as I said, is an educator, and she's taught in New York City for approximately 30 years. Then, of course, Dawn Forrester Price taught English literature in Kingston, and she excelled in Jamaican theater and music as a singer, a lyricist, and award-winning actor. Wow. Having emigrated to the U.S., she taught college-level English. She wrote, directed, and performed educational and religious theater and video productions, including Jamaica Woman. And we have Faith P. Nelson. She is a published poet, freelance copywriter, book developer, and indie publishing consultant. She gained years of experience working behind the scenes at the Embassy of Jamaica in Washington, D.C., and Black Entertainment Television, a Viacom network. Before that, she was an actress in Jamaica's national pantomime and other productions. And of course, we have Dr. Opal Palmer Adisa. She's the author of numerous books. She's editor of 100+ voices for Miss Lou. She has worked in various capacities, including in gender and writing and editing industry. She is skilled in curatorial projects, nonprofit organizations, editing, public speaking, and creative writing. And of course, she is focused. She's part of the University of the West Indies, and she received her PhD from the University of California, Berkeley. And her focus was ethnic studies and Caribbean literature. So these are the powerful women that we listened to this evening. And I am humbled to have joined your crowd. We are to be part of this, the voices speaking for Miss Lou, and, keeping her legacy alive and recognizing that she was more than an entertainer. She was a scholar. And I think for most of us who now speak the patois, we understand that if it wasn't for Miss Lou, we would still be spinning around the jaw corner around the English, right? And so we have to celebrate this particular cultural icon. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the opportunity.
Thanks, Vanjie.
Too, but I want to, I'm going to allow Andrene to close out with her benediction to Miss Lou, but I want to encourage part in this to check out these ladies on LinkedIn,
Yes.
Facebook, Instagram. They have a plethora of literature, both in nation language and in standard English. They are scholars, they are performers, they are marvelous women. And we couldn't do them justice in giving you their bio tonight. So I need you to look out, to check them out on your own, do your research. And I thank them, and I thank you all, and I thank Centenary University for allowing us to be a part of this Black History Month with a
Thank
twist.
you. Thank you.
And thank you, Susan. I appreciate you and the
Thank you,
work you've
Susan.
done. Susan is the library director for Centenary University, and I thank her so much for allowing us to take part in this. And with that, I will allow Andrene to close out with the benediction for Miss Lou.
Thank you. In the shadows of history's darkest night, Louise Bennett Coverley reminds us of our ancestral might. Survivors of the Middle Passage, slavery's chains, in her words for laughter, their resilience retains. So clap her, bless her too, cut and clear, for we grill Miss Lou. Raise Miss Lou picture upon billboard in a Times Square. Our Madras national dress with jankra beads, stylish coconut earrings and bangle she have to wear. Post Louise Bennett verses like Billy Collins in New York City subway. Tell them like the Eiffel Tower upon our September 7th birthday. Clap her, bless her too, cut and clear, for we grill Miss Lou. Sing our praises loud. Join in the mystic dance, make we brock out in a brockins, et to wheel and turn to the gumbe, dinky mini and the kumina. Let the spirit of the ancestors rise to meet her from the caverns of the silk cotton tree to the river valleys of the cockpit country, for she carried out the assignment with grace. We make enough noise in a display. So clap her, bless her too, cut and clear, for we grill Miss Lou. Full of bookshelf in every library. Put Louise next to Shakespeare, Robert Frost, Tolstoy, Zora Neale Hurston, Audre Lorde, Ntozake Shange, Toni Morrison. So clap her, bless her too, cut and clear, for we grill Miss Lou. TV stations will soon catch on. Prime time, night time, midday news, closed captioning, subtitles on Chirons. What a something with nation language, Miss Lou, give with the literacy keys, the literary keys, opening portals to a culture of possibilities. So clap her, bless her too, cut and clear, for we grill Miss Lou. Thank you.